Looking for something to read? Well, these are the books that I've written. Hop on down to the description to find the Amazon links for all 4 of them, and keep your eyes open for more in the future. With that said, on to the video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Omni viewer, and here we are with episode 2 of the Skull Island series. An episode in which very little actually happens. I was actually kind of surprised when it ended, because I was thinking, wait a minute, there's already credits? What? I thought, okay, I guess 21 minutes really has passed, but it didn't feel like it. It felt like there should have been more, because it didn't feel like anything actually occurred in this episode. We pick up basically the next day where, after the shipwreck, Charlie and Mike, and Cap, but he's elsewhere, they're still on the beach they washed up on. For some reason, those giant footprints have disappeared, and suddenly there are crabs that weren't going to respond to their presence on the beach until it was apparently dramatically necessary for them to. Because these crabs apparently respond to vibrations above the sand. And you could argue, yes, it was night and everything, but I mean, would that really make a difference if their response to surface commotion is automatic? Shouldn't they have... I don't know, it just kind of felt like that was a bit of an oversight. The crabs themselves, that whole sequence, that was not bad. I mean, obviously influence from tremors, because they're going to attack you as long as you're on soft ground, but once you're on a rock, you're safe. And that's not necessarily in and of itself a bad thing. It didn't feel like they were just ripping off of tremors. It felt more like it was taking inspiration, which is different. And the crabs themselves look fine as monsters. But it still felt kind of weird that the crabs were not an immediate threat, like as soon as they were on the island. That, I mean, I won't pretend to be an expert on creatures that I didn't make up and which don't have much of a real-world equivalent anyway, but it still feels like a weird thing that they didn't strike as soon as those two were on the beach, and that they waited apparently until the sun was relatively high up in the sky, because it doesn't look like it's early morning when the episode begins. It looks like it's like mid to late morning at best. So what were those crabs waiting for? Of course, they're not the only creatures we see. We also see that weird geode mollusk, I guess you could call it, because it looks like a regular gray rock on the outside, but inside there's this crystalline looking being, hence geode. I have a geode right here, you can see. Gray on the outside, crystals on the inside. But, well, I mean, that looked interesting. That seemed like the sort of thing you would expect to find on this version of Skull Island. And we also got the weird presence of the aloe turtle. The aloe turtle actually does confirm that there is flora-fauna on here. When I looked at the trailer and the original teaser, I did express a bit of concern that it didn't look like there was any flora-fauna on this version of Skull Island, even though the movie established that was like what you were most likely to see. There are, of course, creatures like Kong and the Skullcrawlers who are very specific animal-type creatures. There are normal-looking animals like the deer or certain species of bird, but most of the creatures that we saw highlighted were this strange fusion of plant and animal. And I didn't see many of those in the trailer. I mean, technically the crabs don't count either, but the aloe turtle, I thought that was a nice visual, actually, because aloe is a very interesting-looking plant. Combine that with a turtle that looks like it's made of stone. I think that's an interesting look. It's probably not going to show up again, though, because it's clearly shown to be one of the few creatures on Skull Island that does not want to kill the first thing it sees just on instinct. But either way, it was an interesting little bit of something thrown in. A nice way to bring in a sense of wonder to the setting, I guess. As for everything else, though, well, let's go a little bit deeper than just what the monsters are like. So, one thing I didn't mention in the first episode review, but which I feel like I probably should have, so I may as well do it here because it's something that carried over into the second episode, is that the dialogue in this show, thus far anyway, is not very good. Not all of it is bad, mind you, like the flashback sequence with the GI, who wasn't actually on Skull Island, but he was a part of the expedition that was meant to pick up the survivors. Like, that part was better written than the rest, but for the most part, it's really not. Like, this one exchange between Charlie and Mike that's supposed to be funny as they're sitting on that rock. It's like, are you okay? Just assume that the answer to every question right now is bad. Well, at least you smell good. Really? No, you smell bad, really bad. Like, I know that's supposed to be a joke, but it's not really funny. I don't know if it's the delivery or what, but like, it just didn't, it's not, I don't know. It's just not, I'm almost at a loss for words for what to say about it, but there's a lot of dialogue like that that's like, you think maybe they're trying to be a bit more lighthearted at times, but it really doesn't fit into the scene, or it's just very basic. It's, yeah, dialogue hasn't always been great in even the live-action MonsterVerse movies. Let us not forget the King of the Monsters, for as much as I will defend that movie, still gave us stuff like the gonorrhea line. But the lines in this show are especially not landing with me. Hopefully that improves. It's just kind of shorting out my brain almost, because I'm trying to think of how to describe it, and it's just, it's so bland, yet at the same time so poorly done that, yeah, let's just call it a wash. Maybe it'll improve, but I have my doubts. Beyond that, though, like I said, I'm kind of at a loss for what to say here because not much happens in this episode. Like I said, it felt like it was only just starting by the time we got to the end. And that makes it padding for all intents and purposes. I'm not saying that the events in this episode should not have happened, but they could have probably been a bit more efficient in conveying it, because the episode feels kind of inconsequential. This is something that I find happens with a lot of Netflix originals, and I know this is a Legendary production, but it's still for Netflix, so debuting there, people are going to count it that way anyway. The thing is, though, that because you order a certain number of episodes, and you have to fill all of those slots because that's in the contract, the studio ordered that many, so you need to deliver. There are times where, as a result, certain things will be sort of stretched out longer than they need to be. This episode felt like that. It felt like we didn't need to spend this whole episode just getting our bearings. Spending some time getting our bearings is important, don't get me wrong, but like I said, it felt like it was only just getting started and then the credits roll and you have to watch episode 3, which is not how an episode should go. Like, I get that you want them to come back, yes. In fact, this being a Netflix show where all the episodes aired at once, Netflix technically wants you to keep watching rather than just stop like I'm doing and make a video about it. But it's still not really efficient storytelling. They could have just... There had to be a better way. It's so... The ending was so sudden, and the lack of meaningful content within it was... It's just kind of leaving me unsure of what to actually say about this thing. And I'm not sure I really have that much more to say about it, because again, this is an episode that feels like it's just kind of filler. Yeah, first 2 episodes and we're not off to the best start. I'm still not really won over by any of the characters yet. I'm kind of won over by Cap, because I kind of like the way he's got this sense of awe about his surroundings. Like his first response to seeing the geode mollusk, or whatever it winds up being called, he's not afraid, he's amazed. And I like that about him. I think he's probably going to wind up being my favorite character in the show. But I also think he's probably not going to be in it that much. Yeah, this just feels... You know what? Rather than keep floundering and searching for something to say, I'm just gonna admit defeat. I do not have much to say about this episode, because there's really not much to it to begin with. So, screw it. That's the video. On to episode 3. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see us keep doing what we're doing, you might consider doing all the usual YouTube things, as well as hopping down to the description to find links to DeviantArt, Patreon, Twitter, and links for the different books in the Tales from the Omni Vault universe. Your support is naturally appreciated. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.